episode 1. You're gonna be my first guest, so we'll see how this goes.
Okay.
No promises to anyone viewing, watching, listening. So hope for the best. So I got a little intro I put together from article stuff you'd sent and went through. Kind of start there to give an idea of who you are, and then we'll kind of get into the thicket of it. So Reid Thomas, owner and founder of Reid Thomas Performance Horses, specializing in English, Western, and ranch all-around events. You have a team that you manage that's won over 175 AQHA, AQHYA World and Reserve World Champions and Congress Championships. Advocate for exotic animal conservation, and a large supporter of your mother's Glen Oak Therapeutic Riding Center equine sharing program. Did I miss anything
I
on?
think that's about, that sums it up.
A big piece of it. So for me, I got exposed into this world through my wife. I had no idea. When I think about horses and, South Texas and everything else, it's rodeo.
Right.
And that side. So how would you describe that world? Like the English, this Western, when you hear Western show, and I'm thinking more Western, but like,
Right. Like outside of the ranch and rodeo.
yeah,
side
like
of it.
ranch rodeo stuff.
I think I've always tried to explain to people that it would be like if we were to buy a person, Michael Jordan or Madonna would be worth more money because they were born with some type of God-given talent that you can teach them to be the best by developing it maybe by 10%. But the world that I exist in, a lot of days I'll tell somebody like it's an underground world. And so it is searching out that talent in a horse and then matching it to a rider, because everything we do is judged and scored versus like the rodeo world is timed. And so precision has to be there in all of it. But I have often had the rodeo world come to me and say, if we would all combine our worlds, like if somebody learned to ride at a 10 and then rope at a 10, that's melting all the worlds together. So my background is searching for the quality of horse and matching it to the discipline that the rider wants to do. And I think that you can even say that back to the rodeo world. Now we go ride on a ranch, not much of that matters other than safety, right?
Sure.
So I think my niche market of a job and a career has been kind of manifested around the show world.
Yeah.
And for somebody like yourself, you're like, what is this?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah. And then like your wife would tell you it's amazing. And I find people that don't know anything about it. And then I look at what's happened to the world today, where I think so many people's jobs are at risk because of the change. I like at times was the kid that was told you shouldn't be a horse trainer because you can't make a living. My brother's a physician and my parents definitely
Sure.
wanted me to go to law school. And
Yeah.
so I then now in full circle never would have thought it, but I'm like, my job's pretty secure, because there's always going to be people that want to be outside, and there's always going to be horses in the world in my lifetime that people want to learn to ride. And so it's definitely like not for everybody, but they say, tennis can be a sport you can play, whereas like football in high school, there's sports that you give up the older you get. Where
Yeah.
when people ask me what my job is, I say my job is a lifestyle, and I'm so committed to it that it is my life. So
Yeah. We'll get into more of that on your program and on there. And it's my introduction and being around you and your family and like this whole world. It is wild. I mean, it is super niche, and that's why I find it fascinating. And I really wanted to have you on. I appreciate you coming. You talked about your family, and so if you want, I would really like to paint a full picture here. Like my idea with this podcast, like let's set it up. I really want to get local people, hill country base,
yeah,
like with these unique areas. There's a lot of unique people here, both of which we know many, and their stories can go all sorts of directions. So to do that though, I think people need to understand who these people are and then what they've done. And I think that kind of paints that full picture. So
right.
for me, and I really don't even know, let's start at the beginning. What's your background? Where are you from?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's start family, where were you born and raised, and what was that like?
I was
up?
born in Corpus Christi, raised South Texas my entire life. It was a hunting, fishing type environment. My dad was a contractor, and my mom did real estate. And my tie to Bernie area, hill country area, has always been that my dad was military. And so there were 5 boys and they traveled, lived everywhere. And my grandparents retired in Wimberley.
Okay.
So my whole life, every weekend we had a house on the river and we would spend time with them. And that was my introduction to the hill country. So when I decided that I wanted to train horses for sure and not go to law school, I had 3 options really. You move to Pilot Point, Texas, which is and has been like the mecca of the horse business, but then you share a fence line with every one of your competitors. And so land was originally cheap there, which brought the horse community to there. Whereas in the hill country, land is not cheap and it's not really show horse conducive ground, you know?
Sure.
But the best thing for my business, I say it all the time, one of my most strategic best moves that I didn't even realize was such a great move was moving to Bernie. And I would credit it back to not thinking of what it would do in the horse business, but just from my background as my family. My parents loved Wimberley. My grandparents lived there. Wimberley to me is a lot like Bernie. They kind of grew at the same rate together. So that's a little bit of what my family was and then brought me to this area.
Okay. So siblings?
One brother.
You got one brother?
One brother.
And so you had the contractor side, you had real estate on the other with your mom, and your brother. Y'all close family, growing up, and
yeah, my brother's 19 months older than I am, and so he and I are very different. He went the medical route. He's an orthopedic surgeon, specializes in upper extremities in Corpus, and he and I are super close. We were very much raised in a working family. Like the dinner conversations weren't necessarily about what we were going to do fun. It was what we were going to do, you know, work wise. Or backtracking, when I was in college, you know, the normal college kid was partying a lot more, and sure, there was fun times to that. But my brother and I ended up doing like the real estate stuff with the rental homes and 1031 exchanging stuff into it. So by the time we graduated college, Ryan was going to medical school at UT Galveston, and I had applied to law school, and I had moved back to Corpus and started all that real estate stuff.
okay.
And it was the push of starting that to transitioning to law school, or basically showing my dad that I could work hard enough on this side of life that maybe this hobby, and complete transparency, like I think it took me 15 years to prove not only to my parents, but my dad, that it was a hobby that could actually be turned to business. And I mentor a lot of people in the horse business, and the first thing I always tell them is please get a college education, please have a backup plan, because it is so hard to do. But that's probably one of the most rewarding things, is that I was the little kid that was told that I shouldn't and I couldn't in the horse business. And then a lot of people ask me a lot of what would fill my tank as what I do for a living. And I have not,
by little kid, couldn't and shouldn't.
Right.
Who was telling you that?
whether any adult,
Any adult.
Any
Okay.
adult,
in,
like,
your, in your life at that time was just
anybody
don't do it.
in the horse, like anybody that was smart enough to know enough about horses knew to tell me to stay away from that.
Okay.
Yeah. And that part, now as I look at it, it truly changes so many kids' lives. And so I'm 47 now. I started teaching when I was 14, horse lessons on the side. And that's another segue into Bernie. Like Gail and Shane Riley, they live in Bernie. Carol Grassel, Brittany Bergeline, the Mantors, the Stanfords, like all of my core original 1999 people have moved to Bernie, which,
Sure.
you know, again, you couldn't have seen that coming. And full circle moment this last week, one of the contractors my dad used to do business with, his name was Bill Gentry. It was the first barn I had ever worked out of. And, you know, they had taught about treating it like a church, and you polish the walls with pledge and everything's perfectly clean and the shavings are perfectly clean. Like you walk in and you just sit up taller. And she called me a week ago. And so it has been 17 years since I've taught her a lesson. And this last week, she is what I jokingly say, like she kind of came home. And so I
Wow.
work for Patricia. Her husband, Bill, has since passed away. But it's crazy that I'm now full circle in that moment. And then I would tell you I'm on my 9th generation of teaching that 11 and under kid,
Mhm.
you know, to ride. And then my first group of those kids now have their kids. So it's,
Wow.
I haven't taught their kids yet, but then I'm like, that's coming.
It's
too,
coming,
you know?
right.
Yeah.
So horses and riding, was that your sport or training, like growing up as a kid, or when were you exposed? Like, was it large animal in the house, a family? Did y'all have horses? Or was this something you just kind of picked up? You said 14 you were training.
14 I was training. I started begging for my first horse at 7. And for a long time, my mom had ridden horses. Like her parents had let her do it. And she kind of left it when she went to college. So she knew enough that like that was probably a phase. They're super expensive. It's a lot of work. I don't know if he's going to keep up with it. So the point of that was that if I was going to do it, they had the 2 kids. They were like, well, you guys need to do things together. So I had talked my brother into like, Ryan, if you agree to tell mom and dad that you want a horse, they're going to both let us get a horse. So then my first negotiation in 7 was like, hey, I'll do all the work. You just go in there and agree to it. And he was kind enough, great enough brother that he did. He rode for a little while, but never had the passion for it. So at 7, I knew enough to know that I loved horses. Now, at that moment, like as an adult, self-reflecting, I think that I grew up with 3 Labradors, and we, had a Robalo, and we went fishing and all that stuff. I wasn't like a big hunter because as a kid, I didn't actually like killing the animal. And then in 4-H, I didn't like the idea of the animal that you had to terminate at the end of. So I wasn't really as big into the stock show. So I was like, okay, well, a horse, you get to keep it, you don't have to kill it, and you get to keep going. And so that all started when I was 7, and then I never stopped, ever.
Just
Every day of my life.
all horses.
All horses. Yeah.
Wow.
Started with a $700 horse. We themed it after like different types of Coca-Cola products, from Dr. Pepper, 7-Up, RC. And so we had a barn full of that.
Wow.
Named after those type of drinks.
And so horses, so you wanted a horse. Did you know you wanted to get into like the show stuff, or what exactly was it like early on that kind of went down this route versus rodeo or another route with horses?
I mean, as a kid, I think that like I loved the animal itself. And then my mom let us first start riding at a little barn where a gentleman, Bobby Bourdainette, helped us learn to kind of just ride in a safe way. And then for some way, my mom realized that we weren't quitting. And so she's like, okay, I want to get them a little bit educated. That's when we went down the road in Flower Bluff, right outside of Corpus, and started taking lessons at a barn. And the lady's name was Brenda DeWitt. And I would say that Brenda was the start of teaching more of like the precision to it. Like there is a lead to a horse, and there is, not just staying on.
Sure.
So Brenda would have been the first person that
Exposed you to that.
to the learning side, like the discipline side of riding. Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's great. Okay, so get horses, 14. You've been riding, I guess, up to that time. You get to a point where you're comfortable even start training your own. Are you training for somebody else as an employee, or is it like you were already solo at 14 on the side?
That same barn, I was working out of that barn and then one other barn. So I had kind of like franchised myself a little bit, and I was just teaching lessons to people that own their own horses. And I think back then I was $10 an hour. And so I'd drive to the different barns, and 15 with a learner's permit was like the start of my cash-based business. And I can remember back then, we had a safe in the house, and so I didn't have anything to spend my money on, and I would just save it. And so I just had this wads of cash, and just sit there from all those lessons,
Sure.
And I had like my own horse, but then as I started teaching, it started to develop into, then I would sell that horse to one of the kids and show, and it definitely at 14 is when it started to kind of all move around. We had local 4-H shows, and then we moved up to the bigger breed shows as we went.
Wow. Yeah, I'm just trying to imagine this. Maybe not 14. I mean, my daughter's going to be 14 here this summer. And to think about, okay, they're already there. Like they're at that skill point where they're going to start training. They're going to start charging money for this and get it going.
Yeah.
I mean, it's wild. There's not a lot of 14-year-olds even now that can
manage that part.
Manage that and buck up to it. That's fascinating.
This episode is brought to you by Bookkeepers. Located right here in Bernie and serving the Hill Country and beyond, Bookkeepers helps businesses with their monthly bookkeeping, payroll management, accounts payable and receivable, financial reporting, and fractional CFO consulting. If your business needs help telling its financial story, reach out to Bookkeepers today. Learn more at bookkeepers.com. That's BKKPRS.com. Now, let's get back into it.
So 14, and then you talked about law school, right? Or pursuing the route of a lawyer on that side. So you get out, you went to college, you went to A&M, right? That's my understanding.
A&M.
Was the idea at that time, like you go to school, did you back of your head, you're like, I just want to do the horse training, but I'm going to school? Or was it, did you think, I'm going to take this career path, I'm going to try out, I want to be a lawyer?
I mean, it's hard because I think the biggest problem with the way organized education is I think that we're all at that moment a little too immature to make those decisions. So I'm able to, in retrospect, tell you better what I should have, would have done. I wouldn't change any of it, but the levels of my own insecurities as a person at that age, I think definitely would be to answer like the best original question is like, what led me to horses? I was led to horses because I think as a kid, I didn't really identify or associate it growing up in South Texas with a lot of different people. It's a very, very conservative town.
Yep.
And I think that my bond to the animal still today is like I coach telling people that like it's not a machine. It's a living, breathing animal. And we are in a competition and that is important. But there's two heartbeats in that equation. And so what other thing can you do in life that you can be that passionate about that gives you, a dog does, unconditional love, you know?
Yep.
And if we're lucky, we have that dog 10 to 15 years. But a horse is a 30-year commitment and like they need you. And the more, I think as a kid, the more you put into that work ethic wise, the more you get out of it. And I think that like that would have been, if there was a drug, so to speak, in the moment that kept me addicted to the process, it was definitely like I loved coaching. I loved bringing other people to the joy of a horse, but it also internally, I think, fulfilled me as a person to know that what I was doing mattered and there was that unconditional love piece to it, which like,
sure,
I think, and so then like, I've had people in my life tell me that like I'm able to like walk in the spirit, or I believe in the spirit of all things. And it's not even to get religious right now, but there is something about the true heart and core of a horse that is in that just grounding moment.
Sure.
And so that's nothing. I like to win, but like when you see everybody and anybody that I work for win at the highest level, my most important drive is and I use the word a lot lately, it's like preserve and protect, but I want to preserve and protect myself as a human. I want to preserve and protect the welfare of the horse. And then I want to preserve and protect even the relationship of how I'm treated by that customer. And I think that that's the part that like, as a child growing up and like every 10 years, my insecurities got less. And so I was stronger. But in the beginning, what saved my life as a kid was, I do credit like the love that I had for that horse. And then how I was able to channel it from there has become like the most crazy, biggest, coolest platform of a small horse business. Like you said, like, who am I? What I am? Why am I here? But this sitting in Bernie, Texas, I think is probably one of the top now. I used to say top 10, but it might be one of the top 3 programs in the world. And I think the epicenter of that is truly like my heart to it. Like I genuinely love what I do. So,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow. So All right. So you going through this love. I'm just trying to chronologically go through now your story. Um, you graduate college. You said it was LSAT, I guess, or what? Where did
Yeah.
you get to law school? Did you get in, or you?
Like, so 2002 was a big pivot point for our entire family. My mom and dad had been married 33 years. My mom had found out that my dad was cheating on her. My brother was in his last year of undergrad at UT, and his roommate was number one in his law school class, Zach. And him and his wife were in Port Aransas in a Ford Explorer, little bitty baby in the car seat, little dachshund. And it was during the Ford Firestone cases, rain, and tire popped, flipped. Mom and dad they were both killed in the accident. The little baby survived and the little dachshund survived. And so my brother ended up getting a D that semester in medical school. And my parents filed for divorce, 33 years marriage. And then I was dating a guy that ended up telling my parents that I was gay, all in the matter of 2 to 3 weeks.
Wow.
And so I had taken my LSAT, I had applied to law school, and growing up like in the most Republican family you could imagine, I'll never forget that moment. My dad always like gave me his Suburban. So in college, I was always driving a black Suburban, and every time he got a new one, 2 to 3 years, I'd get it. So for, I don't know, I think I had like 4 or 5 different Suburbans, but I was driving a black Suburban, and I had stopped at a gas station, and I had just put the nozzle into the fuel tank, and my phone rang, still a flip phone back then, and it was my dad. And you just like, back to like where a horse wasn't able to know exactly who I am, like all humans are, you know? And so it was that pivot point for me where dad said specifically, he's like, hey, I just want to let you know that I love you, and anybody that thinks any different of you, you don't need those kind of people in your life. And it was pretty much the last time we had ever really had a conversation about that. But it was, I don't think that I even fuel up a vehicle still today without having that big of an impact of what that moment meant to me as a kid, you know, because like, I think that for me, I like audit a lot of times in this world what cost people their life, or what they do, or, you know, why suicide is the way it was. And I'm not saying that I ever had that thought ever, but I understand that when you love without limits, like I came from and come from the most amazing mom and dad, and I put the pressure on myself as a kid to do good for them, you know? And like my brother said it a bunch. He's like, you know, the Thomas brothers are not the smartest people in the world, but given the opportunity, we will try to outwork you. And I look at my brother and I'm like, no, he's super smart. You know, in that moment, he didn't even graduate from UT. He got in without an undergrad. And so my dad's story back in the day was like, hey, he was definitely successful at his craft, what he did. But if you asked him, like, and like you're a dad, I have no kids. His most proud thing was always Ryan and I. And his favorite thing always was like, well, what do your kids do? And he's like, well, my one son didn't graduate from college. You know, you're like, oh, that's a bummer. What does he do now? Well, he's an orthopedic surgeon. And then my other son is a horse trainer. So, you know, sure. It sounds like, but to be able to take everything that they influenced us with, between my mom and dad and then the horses, I mean, it's my identity. It's what's made me better, stronger, like growing up with those insecurities. And then now to be able to, like, you know, you got to love yourself first before you can love anything else. And so those are the things that like you just can't spell out well. But I would tell you, yes, I train horses. Yes, our goal is to win. But at the peak of what we do, for everything I've done, we've won with that horse or the people or myself before reaching that moment. And that, I think, even to somebody like yourself that doesn't do the horse business, you can relate to that. You're like,
Sure.
okay, I get it. You know,
Yeah.
In baseball, there's not a relationship with the actual baseball. You know, there's a relationship with the craft of becoming better at it and the skill. But, you know, with what I do, you actually identify with that animal. So I think it makes it extra special.
Yeah, you know, not involved with the horses, never have. As you know, I'm allergic to them, so I definitely can't ride of all things. And just recently, you know, we've had dogs growing up my whole life, but just recently I've got into, I got an English Cocker Spaniel, and so, and training her, and I had her sent for training and brought her back, and I've been working with her at the house and took her on her first bird hunt. Blown away, right? And just in a short amount of time, like that bond already with that animal is, you know, I love that dog.
Yeah.
And we can read, and she's dedicated, you know, to me at all times. And I can only imagine then a 1,500, 2,000 pound animal, and gracefully and riding and doing and training and having that longevity of 30 years with that animal.
Right.
Even how much more so those connections are.
Yeah.
All right. Wow. So you had those major events all in a very short amount of time. You had just graduated or right around, and that was your pivot of, you know what, I'm going to take this leap and go into the horse trading full time.
I didn't trust it then. And I only at that moment knew that if I was going to do one thing, I better have 2 or 3 things going at the same time. So I applied to law school. I got the real estate license. We started doing the rental home stuff. And then I was teaching and training horses on the side. So I was trying to run 3 things at once. Bought a commercial little building and opened up a restaurant there. And so I had my hands in many things, I think, just to keep myself extremely busy and work really, really hard. So when I moved back to Corpus, I would, my hours were all over the place, but I would work, close the restaurant at midnight, count all the money, put that stuff away. Then I'd go ride at the barn. Then I'd sell real estate during the day. Then I'd go back to the restaurant. In 1 year, I lived in 8 different houses. I enjoy projects. Anybody that knows me well is going to make fun of me because I never not have a project. So it was always redoing that house. But, you know, living alone, 1 dog at the time, I could easily pick up and move.
Sure.
And so the house was kind of staged, and I had my real estate license. I could rent it out. I could sell it. I could 1031 exchange, and we could sell 1 and buy 2. And so it was kind of just a fun early game. And it showed what I thought. It would be interesting if both my parents could be here to have some insight of what I'm saying. But in my mind, I thought in my own insecure way that I was showing them that I was able to not go to law school. And I wanted to go to law school, but I think that there was a piece that I wanted to go to law school because my brother was in medical school, and I knew my dad wanted to be a lawyer and didn't. And so I think all good parents, when I speak to them, they want more for their children than they were able to do themselves, giving the opportunity, right? And so I appreciated the push and that opportunity, like, you know, to be able to know that you could have that for yourself and always, whether you used it or not, fall back on it. So I think that I would have enjoyed being a lawyer.
Sure.
I do. But my grandmother.
I don't think you would have.
You don't think so?
No.
I would have
think you
needed
tell
to be
yourself
a really good one. But my grandma was like, my mom's mom, Charlotte, was a pretty big pivot too, because she sat me down and she said, and my dad and her did not get along well. That's another piece to the puzzle.
Okay.
And so she sat me down and said, you know, sweetie, there's enough lawyers in the world that if you do what you want to do and what speaks to your heart and you're honest about it your entire career, then you will be fine. And I think that was another, like, putting the gas in the fuel tank moment for me. Is like, I can't tell you how many times I've reflected on that wisdom to know, like, I didn't know what she was telling me as much then as I do now. And again, it'd be really neat for her to be able to see where that is today, because she was the grandmother before I was in horses. When I was a kid, they lived in Bracketville, Texas, Fort Clark. It's like an old settlement town.
Okay.
And I would go there every summer, and she had a golf cart, and we drive to the river, and there's like an amphitheater outside, and they had guineas everywhere running. And there was an old stable that used to be part of the fort, and she would always drive me through there and like feed deer, feed horses and stuff. But she was another super influential person in the part of the horse stuff. She loved horses.
Yeah, that's awesome. So how long did that go? I mean, I guess at what point did you even carry on like the 1031 real estate?
I was in Corpus from 2012 to, so 10 years. I was in Corpus 10 years.
10 years.
Before moved to Bernie in 2012.
2012.
Yeah.
And once you moved up here, that's it. It's all gun ho. It's just horses.
Yeah. When I moved to Bernie, my brother bought me out of the 50% of all the real estate stuff. So he still does that, him and his wife, Holly, in Corpus. But then my real estate license is inactive, and I fully identify as a horse trainer. Starting in
You're not in two worlds.
Yeah. There's no way I could do any. In my brain, I would like to think that I could do more, but I don't think that I could.
Yeah.
That's where I would say in 1997 is when to 99 I started really doing the horse stuff, but 2012 would have been another huge year for me. I lost my dad in 2012 and moved to Bernie in 2012, and so when I was in Corpus, I trained out of my mom and dad's facility. They bought and built that place, so the commitment of leaving that and then being a tenant and renting somewhere. I rented stalls out at Double Diamond off of 46 here.
Okay.
And that's like a huge facility. And so that allowed me to move here, get a house, but then not have the commitment of the facility, because the horse business, the facility is a major undertaking.
Yeah. Never ending.
Never.
So 2012, you make that jump. You talk about your father passing. How old are you? You're mid-20s ish.
I was in my 30s.
Oh, 30s.
Yeah.
And so, and at that moment, that's when you're like, I guess did you feel like you were still seeking acceptance from your father then on that, at that point, or?
No, I was far enough. So for the 10 years in Corpus, I was far enough along that I was comfortable and accepted.
You've proved a point
in my network.
Okay. Yeah.
And the world's so much different now than it used to be. But growing up in South Texas, training horses, I mean, I couldn't have tried to do anything for myself in any more rare of a demographics. Training horses down there. It's not set up for that, It's
right.
Fishing and windsurfing and working at a refinery.
Yeah.
And then I think that gave me a little bit of courage. It's like, if I was able to do it there, then I should be good. But I just didn't realize what moving to Bernie would do, with all the things that you don't know till you live in Bernie. You don't know what something's like till you leave. But I get to appreciate Bernie from a level of, I'm from Corpus and it's so different. But then the other confirmation is all the people. So 15% of my Reid Thomas Performance Horse business is most likely local within 45 minutes of me, 15%. The rest of it is all nationwide.
Sure.
And 2 customers that live in Australia. And so I don't get credit for it, but we're 25 minutes from the airport. Every time somebody comes in to Bernie and rides, they stay somewhere, enjoy it, go to all the restaurants, all the places. And at least, I would say now, 7 of the people I work for have either moved here or bought a second home here.
After visiting and coming through.
Training and riding, And so I think that those were things I didn't know,
Sure.
you know, like
Sure.
had I known, I should have come 10 years prior, you know, but
Yeah. So the community itself has helped retain
yeah.
clients for you in there, and then you've gained clients locally. You said about 15%. How would that compare down like to Corpus? I mean, you said it was all like fishing and everything. Did you have?
I was homegrown. So normally people in my profession don't go to college and they work for somebody and you are an intern. I was fortunate that my parents put me and I was able to train with trainers along the way. So even though they were helping pay for a horse to be in training, I think it was a little bit like I got to experience that like an internship, because when I would go spend the summers, I can remember teaching their kids how to read. I can remember writing down all their messages off the answering machine and helping them like kind of run things. So there was something in my fiber that wanted more. And I think that not working for somebody put me in the beginning of what I do at a disadvantage to this. But it's just required me, like, you know, in any other profession, you're required to do continuing education. And so like even today, running a little 5 minutes late to this was one of my mentors, Steve and Andrea Archer. They're out of Richmond, Texas. And I would say 25 years ago, I took some of my customers to Steve and he helped me. And those two people do not leave a message or a text or a letter without, "We love you, Reid. We have your back. We appreciate you. You're amazing."
Wow.
And so we have this relationship of, so today he came in and was helping teach some of my customers today on all the things, and he'll take a horse and help me with that horse if we're having trouble. So many times I think in the horse business, probably like other sectors of jobs, like you either, and I talked about being insecure. The one thing I'm not insecure about is I'm not insecure about change, and I'm not insecure about making any type of pivot for the better of a person or a horse. And I think that having no ego to it, and maybe it was born from being insecure, I don't know. I'd have to like really dive into that. But the no ego part to the horse business has probably been a weapon to learn to be as good of a coach as I can possibly be. And to know that when I leave a table or a meeting or a phone conversation, that I had that person's very best interest at heart.
Sure.
And in an unregulated business, there's no regulation. I think that has been something that's helped me. My mentors, the people that I have been coached by and with, taking those pieces from them. I would say Steve and Andrea Archer are role model people on how to treat people, treat each other, and to model a business after. And interestingly enough, halfway through their career, they experienced burnout on the level of showing that I do. And they became so good, they realized they could stay home and teach lessons and run a business out of Houston with the training and the boarding and not push it so hard. So again, it was another lesson, like, you know, watching that, like we as horse trainers jokingly say that we're like glorified carnies many of days. We just pick up everything, you put it in the truck, you travel and you unload it and you turn the lights on and you start dancing. But that part can be a lot.
Yeah. I know we'll get into that just because I think a lot of people don't even understand like what's involved in there, but we'll get
crazy.
It's interesting. You were talking about like you have mentors. So, I mean, you talked about earlier, you feel like your program is probably top 3 in the world. Is that what, did I misunderstand what you were saying earlier?
I think for building those all around teams to show, like, I think that we're right on the edge of that.
Yeah.
I think that I have a team of people that work with me, that when we go to these horse shows, there's potentially 5 arenas being judged at once. So a lot of my competition is a program that might be a husband and wife team. And we all know that marriages are good, but it is hard to be in a marriage and to run a business together.
Yeah.
So I watch at the horse shows a lot of a husband wife team. You know, they might be having an off day, but they can't show it, right?
Sure.
But then they're having to manage that. Or in what we do, they have their own kid that's showing. And so like just studying how that's gone over the years, some other parents might not want to put their kid in that program with the trainers having a kid, you know?
Yeah.
So the dynamics
Yeah.
of that, there's been some like unforeseen, almost competitive advantages to us because, you know, Curtis works for me, Miles, Martin, and everybody brings something different to the table that allows each customer to be like attended to depending on what discipline or what lesson or what horse they have.
Sure.
And so that part, as we've grown, that part's been really good. I couldn't do what I do today at the level we do, at the size we do by myself. If I was to change that today, I think I'd have to go to like 12 to 15 horses.
Like way down.
Versus
How many are you at now?
we have 67 stalls at the place, and it fluctuates in the 55 number
Wow.
on horses.
That's a lot of horses.
Yeah.
So like these mentors, like what I'm trying to get at, I guess, like you feel, I would say you're at top of your game, or do you feel like you're at the top of your game right now, like in your career, or is there room to grow still?
I said it today in a lesson. I think that every day that you ride a horse, you get better. You have the opportunity to become better. So I think as a whole in a team, like when I moved to San Antonio, I started teaching a little girl. Her name was Sarah, and her mom worked at HEB, and I had no idea. She went to A&M, so I don't know if she found me because I went to A&M. Sarah ended up going to A&M, but full circle on the story, Roxanne was one of those people that taught me what it meant to have a 2 a.m. friend, like somebody that you could call at 2 a.m. that would answer. And the more successful you become, the smaller your circle becomes, the less that clap for you, which we all realize that. But that, like, you know, in your 30s, you look on both hands, and then in your 40s, you look on one hand for those people. And I think that as far as getting better at our specific craft of training horses and doing what we do, I've organized such a team of trained professionals instead of interns that do know their job, because at the level that we're at, we don't have time to teach and train the people that help me, that get paid to help the people we work for because of the caliber horses we ride. Those people would not accept somebody needing to learn their craft on their horse at the same time. That's the trick to the business that I think is so hard. And so I think that she sat me down once and told me, back to the insecure piece of life, that the bigger you become and the better you get, the more it is about personal development. And I think that that wisdom is another wisdom that has stuck with me my entire career. And when she became president of HEB, texting her, watching where she started and where she grew to, and then the mentorship I worked for her. I taught her daughter. Many a days I'd leave that and I'm like, oh my God, I should be paying her because of what she's taught me, you know? But I think that in the cycle of life, that becomes the most rewarding thing of when you can have relationships with people like that. That is the type of relationship I tried to explain that I had with my horses as a kid. It was just this like build up, make you feel better. And I think that as far as growing or learning back in my people getting better, I would say it has nothing to do with teaching any of the people that I work with to be better at their craft. It's to be better at their own mental game. And I think that each one of them often are, you know, they're like, how do you do it? Or what is in your program, or what drugs do you take to be able to do that?
Yeah.
And it's rewarding to be able to say none, you know, but to be able to be there, I think for my team on the mental side of stuff.
Sure.
Is the part that has made me a weapon when I am coaching a kid that is, you know, their parents have no idea what the horse business is, you know, and I get a lot of that. Like, it's a successful mom and dad, and they just so happen to, I say, get lucky with a kid that loves horses. They probably feel unlucky.
Sure.
Because like, I don't know what I'm doing with this. But I think that at the level of what we do, I always tell parents when they come to me, there's a new customer that came this week. And I said, the good news is we are so intense on our craft of what we do. We will chase your kid away, and I will tell you it's not worth it. Or you might wish that you'd never met me.
Yeah.
Because if they do love it, then it doesn't matter if they want to do a riding lesson once a week, or the sky's the limit if they want to go try to win the world and, you know, get on an equestrian team. And so that part is cool to have.
So let's talk about your program there. I mean, you mentioned earlier, you try to pair riders and horses, right? You got to know these personalities, two different people, get them on the same horse or whatever the program is and let them run. I mean, that's got to be incredibly difficult because, I mean, you imagine you get clients that bring, I got a horse, this is my great horse, right? And they're like, that's not the horse for you. Sorry.
Yeah.
Right. And
yeah,
that's got to be a tough conversation on that point. And the time, like you got to get to know the horses and you got to get to know the people.
Yeah.
And I guess, how did you come with this philosophy? Like, and how do you even practice that today? Like someone new coming in.
I do like back from the business side of schooling. And I think where I sometimes like, I didn't work for somebody, but like the management side, I do a goal survey and I write everything down with each customer. And I think that, feeling a little bit old school of writing stuff down brings them to the purpose of what their true goals are. And so, I always call it like a chess move. But for me, once somebody writes down what their top 3 goals are, you know, where they want to be in a year and what they want to win with the horse they have, I can quickly sit down with them, you know, just like we're sitting down today, and not ever get on that horse and tell them whether I can achieve those goals, or in fairness to them or the horse, you know, it's the wrong move. And one of the ways I've always explained that is, you know, there's somebody body type that runs a marathon and there's somebody body type that wins a bodybuilding contest on stage. Sure. And so a lot of times people are trying to look like the bodybuilder, but then they want to be the fastest sprinter. And so to me, in the horse stuff, the people are spending enough money and they want it enough that they actually appreciate me in that moment. I always say, I'm going to disappoint you right now, rather than take your money and disappoint you for the next year and have you frustrated to where I could have saved you all of that disappointment. Yeah. And so 20 years ago, maybe I wouldn't have been in the place to be able to say that. But for me, within the program, if you saw my notes, there's 20 horses always that are sitting on a list that are for sale or needs to be pivoted. And it's like anything, you know, if you and I went to high school and we stayed in 11th grade for 5 years in a row, even though we were able to get out of that grade, we at some point we'd be like, God, we're not progressing at all. Yeah. So in fairness, it's my job to take that 11th grade horse and pass it down to another 10th grader, if you will. Sure. And then allow that 11th grader hopefully to buy a horse that just that horse graduated college somewhere, and then you start building. So any of the kids that I develop, I think they go between 4 and 7 horses in the span of their 8-year-old year until their 18th year. Every once in a while, you can get super lucky and keep that same horse for 5 years. But Miles, that works with me, always jokingly says we need to make a t-shirt that the day of teaching a kid and a horse are not here. They never existed. It's not possible. And when you really like think about it, a lot of parents would come and be like, I want my kid to work hard and I want them to learn. Okay, we receive that. But at the same time, now we've added the element of judged competition. And so no judge that enters the arena that watches that child show knows if they rode every day the last 30 days or they live in Washington State and haven't ridden since the last horse show. And that's the unfair part to, somebody would say, the horse business, that maybe would create a spoiled brat. But I rise above that and say, welcome to the real world. It's the unfair advantage to the entire world. Sure. And so my job as the manager of the program is to make sure that I'm doing every foot forward to have each rider matched to the best possible horse. Now, in doing that, it's to, instead of, some coaches would coach from the defensive side of like, well, what you're weak at, I'm going to make you work harder and get better at. My thing is what I need to study their weaknesses and then figure out what horse can help them learn better from their weaknesses and make up for them until they learn. I use the analogy a lot that it's like dancing. Like if you and I went on Dancing with the Stars and we were matched with the very best dancers, we're going to learn quicker, better, the rhythm and the timing. And that's the part that people that don't ride horses have no idea, because a great horse will teach you great timing and great rhythm. And what I mean by that is it's like their movement, and they're not all created equal. And so great horses have rescued, and rescued's a weird word to say, but I've tested it and I've seen it happen time and time again, where I will get a rider, and kids are pretty easy to teach, but when you get a rider that's like starting riding in their 30s or 40s, that's harder to do. It's like snow skiing. You see the kids do it great, and a first time adult, is going to get hurt because you're trying to protect yourself. But that great horse will fast forward any amount of time in 1 year to a 5-year faster window. And that's the hard part of my job is, and I cannot remember who told me this, but it was one of the best descriptions of what we do. A lot of people don't enjoy teaching kids and showing with kids because you have the parents to deal with and you have the grandparents to deal with. And so the kids aren't paying for it yet.
Right.
So the parents are paying for it. And so there's all the dynamics in it that makes it.
Who's your true client, right?
I mean, all of them.
Right. Yeah.
And so that part, one of my big mentors, Charlie and Jason, out of Pilot Point, now have retired from training. And it is because they have done so well and been so successful. They have the choice to do that.
Sure.
Many trainers, if not, maybe they might be the first one at in their 50s to be able to do that. And about 10 years ago, they stopped training youth kids, no youth kids at all. And the reason is because of the pressure of that. And like the what they call like the pressure cooker, that a lot of them feel like there's almost a tombstone at that 18th year to where they have to achieve all those goals. And so then they go to college, or they stop riding, or maybe they're fortunate where they're able to still ride, but that's where you see a lot of the crazy come out.
What's your client base structure like? If mostly children, youth, compared to adults, or a good 50-50 blend? Or
it's so age division are 18 and under, and then 19 to 49, and then the select division is 50 and over.
Okay.
And so there's 3 brackets to that, and it depends on the year. If you would have asked me that question a year ago, I had 6 or 7 of the coolest little 13 and under kids. So now that group is 14 through 18. But I would say it's an even mix between youth kids, amateurs, and then not quite as many selects, but it just changes depending on the year.
How does that work? I mean, for you personally, because there's 2 sides of this training, right? You got the horses and how they are and what they got to do for whatever class they're in, but then you got the people, and you got to train these people how to ride, what they are, but completely different training a 12-year-old versus a 59-year-old and all between, right? And standardizing that, because it's not just you. I mean, I'm assuming you work with all the horses, you work with all the people at some point in your busy day,
right?
But you have to let your team do that too. I mean, so building the structure around like all these different moving targets, what have you found? Like, what have you built to even like handle that and work with that?
So everybody plans their horse shows, usually 3 to 4 horse shows in advance. And based on when what they're going to do show wise, when they're going to come practice wise, especially if they're an out of town customer, they usually come for a 3 or 4 day weekend kind of. Example would be this week, there was 4 or 5 clients from out of town that rode really, really hard all through the 4 or 5 days. And then now I won't see them till I go to a horse show with them again.
Wow.
Yeah. And then the local customers,
will they practice while they're gone, you think, or are they
No.
no? So
No.
they're out. And when's the next show?
So the ones that were like ones that came in this week would meet me at a horse show in like 2 or 3 weeks, but all of those customers don't have a horse facility at home and don't ride at home.
Wow. And then they're getting up and they're going to big events, big money to compete and pay.
Right. Right.
Wow.
And so they have to know their horse,
Sure.
know their program. And that's, I think, where like the trust factor comes in. And I think your long hours at a horse show, you're going to practice each of those events with each client before they show. And there's a certain amount, like, you know, getting there safely, getting set up, and then getting prepared to show, you know.
How much trust do you put into your clients then? Because like if they don't put in that work at home, they're not doing, and they're going out, like it's still your name on that.
Right.
And like they can tarnish your name on just lack of preparation on your side. I mean,
I
how is that?
I think we're so in tune to it all that we wouldn't let anybody go without being prepared.
Sure.
And I think the harder part is the part of the horse with being the athlete, that we are dealing with this animal that cannot say where they hurt. They can show us, you know, from limping. But I think more of my stress comes from like the disappointing side is that you've done all that prep and then you are on an animal and they do get hurt and they do get sick. And so I think that you grow with your customers. And, you know, if a customer's not ever had a lame horse, it's going to be a new process for them. If they've had 3 or 4 horses and they knew what it meant to do the vet work and to explore it, then it's going to be an easier conversation to have, but it doesn't make it any more less disappointing.
Sure.
And so I think that about 5 years ago, we didn't have the rehab ability within our program, but now we have the shockwave machine, the laser machine, the spa, the equicizer. So as caring for these athletes, there's always, in a barn of 60-ish horses, there's always 5 to 7 that sit like you would think any typical athlete on a rehab list that has to set their show goals aside and get healthy again. And that's something that, as a professional, knowing that these people are spending money and setting these goals, and then that none of this is possible until we get this athlete back on the road again.
Yeah.
And so if you ask me what is one of the harder things that you wouldn't think on the backside is to manage, is the loss of a great horse and the unknown, working with the vets. And, you know, my brother said it to me about 10 years ago. He said, everything you guys do in the pre-purchase of a horse is so backwards. You guys take it to a vet, it can't talk, and you use x-rays to predict the future of its welfare. And you have no idea. And he is absolutely right, because we as humans go in when something hurts and we say it hurts right here.
Yeah.
And you x-ray it, and then you define and you talk out the problem of it. And so I sit here today, and we talked about it even today in the arena, that like we've all vetted a horse that's vetted and x-rayed great and then has limped from a soft tissue or some issue. And so it does bring you back to the piece of, at the end of the day, I always tell my customers, like, do you realize that we are so blessed to be able to ride a 1,500-pound animal and it not try to kill us?
Yeah.
If it was smart enough to know, it would just buck us off once and we'd never get back on it. And then to also like not know exactly what's wrong with it grounds you, because you can throw 20 darts at it and still not solve it. And your sole goal on your goal sheet was like, I want my kid to go to this horse show and be successful. My prayer and my hope is that I always work for somebody that does truly put their horse's welfare first and does, don't get me wrong, I love to win, but I don't love to win for the wrong reasons or the wrong person. And I think that the more secure I've become in my business, I have been able to eliminate the wrong reasons. And I think that that these horses are not a disposable, discarded item, you know? And to some people, it's just a means to an end to the next goal. And so that's the one thing I do like about my program is that the owners will pause. We're going to pause this. We're going to cancel taking this one to this horse show until we can figure this out. And there's a team of vets and professionals that help us with that. And I've missed in the last 10 years, sometimes just taking it one time and you hoping that you get it fixed. So continuing to go back and continuing to try that. With a horse, when it's hurt, you block it out. You deaden this zone and then you work it. And then you deaden this zone and then you work it until you discover, because they can. You know, it's limping on this leg, but where on this leg?
Yeah.
And there was a thing on social media not too long ago about an MRI, a CT scan, and an X-ray machine of a banana, and it showed you the imaging of each one of that. When I saw that, and it was so different, we vet check horses off of an X-ray. When they then go unsound and we can't figure it out, then we usually go to a CT scan, bone scan, or an MRI. Well, it's like, okay, well, shit, why didn't we do that in the beginning? But the banana showed that everything shows something different. And so then I was like, well, okay, that's why each professional can potentially have a different opinion of what's happening with this animal that can't tell us where it hurts until we discover where it's at. And that's been, you know, since I started training till now, everybody has said, like everything in the world, everything has gotten so much better. We know more, the technology's better. And so where they were just injecting a joint back in the day and hoping it was working as a placebo effect to fix it temporarily, but it was masking a soft tissue problem behind that. And so becoming a steward of how many hats do I wear? I'm a horse trainer by profession. I'm a psychiatrist, untrained, unlicensed many of days. And some days I feel like a vet and I feel like an advocate to go talk to the horseshoer on all of that. So where I said today that the horse has no voice, I guess simply said, I've learned to try to be the voice of all of that within my business and educate and communicate with my customers, and then continue to then keep being the voice of that horse has been like a really important piece that I think a lot of trainers, there's some closed forums on Facebook and they have like different things that people comment as like a horse trainer, and I'll read them sometimes. And some of them are like, you know, people need to understand that we're busy training horses and we don't have the time to answer the phone or call.
Yeah.
And I read those things and then I read through who comments on them and I'm like, my God, like that's who's failing. And then everybody who's commenting on board with that is also who's failing. You know, they like jump on that bandwagon. And so I think that being able to educate my people that might not know anything originally about the horses, all they know is that they love their horse, and talk through all that stuff has been another super important piece, because if I was the customer, that's how I would want to be treated. I would want to know. I would want to be made aware of and have input on all that stuff for sure.
What other items do you think are unique to your program compared to others that make you your team as successful as it is?
I think that there's not many programs in the world where each one of the people that work with me could also do it on their own as a professional. So when you combine all those together, I think that makes our model different, to where it would almost be like if we tomorrow opened our own law firm and there was 4 layers to it, 4 levels. You might have a layer that could handle wills and trusts, and then you might have a real estate section, and then an oil and gas.
Sure.
I think that when I talk to the team, the part that makes it a well-oiled machine is at the top of that gig, it's a group of people that can exist and make confident decisions on their own, that we all have each other's back. And the biggest piece of our team is that if you don't have that, or you can't have that, we can't continue to sail forward.
Yeah.
And I think that I'm, as a person, even in the management side of things, like I don't want to give up on somebody. And I don't want to give up on a horse either. But if you lack the talent as the horse, or you lack the work ethic as the horse, we at some point have to give up on that horse and sell that horse and buy a new horse. And I think within my team, I've been faced with those challenges, thinking maybe I could do better, or maybe if I led by example better, that person would step up. Interestingly, about the horse business, my mom has a therapeutic riding center in Corpus that she started when my mom and dad divorced, because they used to work the construction and real estate together. And I have watched, and just on my own case study moment, I've watched like the horse business can bring a lot of broken people together sometimes. And I see that people go to the horse when they're lacking something maybe in their life or needing something fulfilled. Now, my mom's gig on the therapy side, like that changes lives with the kids and stuff. But I think that it's been super educational for me to try to weed through what bullshit can I put up with on the management side of people, and when is enough, and how broken is that person, and where are they going to go with that?
Sure.
You know? And that, you know, that part has, that's been a lot over the years. I would say the most rewarding full circle moment is realizing that I am going to give up on this person and they are going to go away. And I've done that. And then what you'd always hope for somebody in life is that they could get their shit together.
Yeah.
And most recently I've had somebody who has done that. And they said to me that I'd never seen them at their sober best. And I now see them at that. So for 5 years, I myself as a manager was treading water, trying to think what I could do better to step that person up. And again, realizing it had to come from inside them. And there was nothing I could do. My mom tried, Eric tried, everybody. And now when I tell you that she's at her very best, she's at her very best. That is as rewarding as training a horse. It has nothing to do with training, but it's just like the circle of management.
Yeah.
And I think that that the horse community is such a, like you said in the beginning, it's such a unknown niche group of people.
Yeah.
And it's cool when that comes together. So
how do you know, with these teams that you have and that you're managing, your employees, the other trainers that you have, you talked about, your name's on this, right? And I guess everyone has their name within the program, but your name's on it. And you're dealing with high valued clients, high valued horses, and everything involved. How much of your philosophy do they take on, right? Are they fully on board? Like, or is this like a collective group that y'all collectively have come up with and you all agree upon that, you know, and is it, I guess my point is like, what's the scalability of this and how does that look to building that trust with these employees that, hey, they can take it. I don't, Reid, have to be there. And I trust
I've tested it to not be there and it doesn't work well. And I think because it comes from the core way that I manage it myself. And so there was a time I tried to not go to a horse show and half the team was like, never let that happen again. And so the scalability of it doesn't look real good. We've tried at times to go to 2 horse shows at once. But we've learned that it's better to stay as a whole, and what are and 2 can stay home and 3 can go. But for 3 to go to this show and 2 or 3 go over here, it starts to get a little bit spread thin.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so I do think that there's no opportunity to like ever franchise this style of business. It is definitely like you have to do it yourself to be able to build and be present for it all. Now, you know, you can get into like the developing a horse and buying and selling horses, which Eric is really good at that. And so we've been able to capitalize on that side. And I think that that's an important piece. I encourage my team that every day they work every day for every dollar. They have to put in a minute to make a minute of money, right? But if they could start to do things like that, that's a way that they could build their own nest egg. And in the horse business, you know, there's not like a 401k and all the benefits to all that. You better start, you know, you have to create that yourself. And I think that a lot of people do not think about that in the horse business. I hear time and time again, people that do not have any retirement plan and any health insurance, and that scares the shit out of me.
Yeah.
You know, and especially in an industry where the only thing that you must have is your body working to be able to work. Right.
Yeah.
So, and
you're physically abusing it.
Yeah.
Constantly.
Every day.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. So that part, I try to mentor, the people that work with me that are younger than me. Like, hey guys, like, these are things you should look into, and these are things you should be doing.
Do you feel like there's somebody or people on your team now that will be who you were at a young age, who's going to take their mentorship, their training, where they're at, and go off into eventually start their own program? That you have mentors now. You were talking about UC, and you do you foresee that being anyone on your team now?
I do think that there are some 15 to 17-year-old kids that I was always like, ugh, don't do it. But there's a couple of them now where I'm like, yeah, I do think that they could. If they want to, I think they could.
That's awesome. Let's talk about Eric.
Yeah.
Partner. I mean, friend, everything, right? He's business partner. You'll work together, but partner in life, right? And so, like, who is he to you, and how would you describe that, you know, for that, and like the importance of having that teammate like by your side with all of this?
He's somebody that is going to tell you exactly how it is. You might not like the way that it sounds, but he always has a really good gut with every situation, a keen eye to buy and to sell and create those horses. He doesn't train or do anything with the horse business. He uses what I do in my business as a platform for him to be a non-pro, to ride and show and do. Yeah. So the yin to the yang and the benefit of it is huge. He also does reining horses, and he keeps those elsewhere, but we move and outsource all that stuff. Of jokingly, they say that you should never give anybody a lesson on a horse that you've ever seen naked, because it's never going to go good. And so there's wisdom in that. And, he comes from the marketing and graphic design sector. And so he's built a business, doing the, ads and the marketing and the management of that. And then, you know, riding the way of the times. When we first started doing this, ads were the way to do it. Now, you know, with all the reels and TikTok and Instagram, stuff like that, he's upgraded and, you know, started doing those, you know, 10 to 15-second reels. And so his eye for all of that, from the horse to all things, definitely I would give him credit that in the last, you know, 12 years of building the business that we have, is because of an even amount of the buying and selling and finding and doing all the horse stuff, that myself as a trainer, tending to all the customers, I don't know that I would have the time to seek all that out.
Sure.
He is so connected to the social media side of stuff that it's a competitive advantage for sure, that he's aware of maybe a horse that is selling, or he sees via that, you know, a lot of us are in the arena riding, not doing those things, or traveling to a horse show or at a horse show. And so there's many times he's like, hey, you need to check this out, or you need to do this, or like, that's a good thought, but that is not the right horse for that kid, because I've seen it do A, B, and C.
Yeah.
And so I think I wouldn't have as much of that advantage if he didn't do all that stuff, you know, if he had a job outside of the horse world.
Sure. Horse training, all that, horse selling, exotics.
Yeah.
What's that like?
The exotics. The exotics have been a fun part. It started out as a hobby, and back to my little business brain and Eric's business brain, when we started realizing we were collecting more animals than we really needed, we kind of sat down, and a guy that had 12 female giraffes in Bernie said, if you're going to do this for the right reason, do it for conservation and do it for educating people and enjoy it. And so it kind of was a moment where we were like, okay, if we're going to do this, he's like, pick 5 to 6 animals that you're passionate about and try to raise them and breed them. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be a lot of work. It's going to be expensive, but there could be some return in value in that. And so that's where Eric has run with that on, I call it like a little bit of the exotic animal stock market, if you will. He buys, trades, all that stuff. So he has the giraffes, the tapirs, the lemurs, the Highland mini cows. And I don't even know some days that this pair is sold and this pair has been bought. Like, things are always changing, just like the horse business.
Sure.
We are attached to our horses. We are attached to our dogs. But a lot of those exotic animals, you call them super exotics because they're so valuable. They'll come and go just based on people wanting to buy them.
Wow. Big market.
Huge market.
Is it local or is it all over U.S., world?
It's
for y'all. I don't know.
It's been the most entertaining thing for me to witness, because in my job, I have to train an animal, care for an animal, take it to the vet, shoe it, and the amount of work that goes into it to make it valuable is a lot. You know, it's not just born and valued at what it's valued. So when you flip to the exotic market, when a giraffe is born, it doesn't matter, males are worth less than female, but it's worth what it's worth. And in one phone call, you call an exotic trader that will have a buyer for it. So they organize transport. If it's, some type of deer, the darting of it, the tranquilizing, the loading. And so for me, I look at it and I'm like, gosh, maybe that's like a long-term segue. As you become older in training horses, you can do a little bit of that and not so much of the push that we do today.
Makes sense. Is that, kind of wind down here. We have this store, we got the exotics. You were talked about, like, there is no scalability here, right? And I know the shows, you can go into the show side, but I think it's my understanding it's like sun up, sundown, and before sundown, like sun up to sun up almost of.
Yeah.
And how long?
3 to 4 hours of sleep for
how many?
20 days straight.
20 days straight.
Yeah.
And how many horses are you bringing?
The most we took this year, we took 33 to the Sun Circuit. So 33 is a huge number. 12 to 15 would be a low number.
Ton of horses.
Yeah.
How many can you fit in a trailer? So, how many trailers are we loads?
We're taking 6 rigs, sometimes a rig. Biggest trailer is 8 horse trailer.
Yeah.
But that's the other part of it, is logistics wise, like, should we be hauling 10 horse? Well, you get a 10 horse, then you have to have a CDL. And so then it limits who can drive it. And so you're always juggling that. Sometimes a rig will make 2 trips. Like, the transportation part, logistics wise, of what we do feels like another full-time job sometimes, making sure that you have everything scheduled. And when you transport a horse longer than 12 hours, you overnight it. So you pick we call it a horse hotel, but it's a barn that has enough room to accommodate those horses. And so it's a network of people that know where we can stop and stay and do all that stuff.
That's wild.
It's crazy.
And it's all over the U.S.
All over. Yeah.
That's crazy. So you're pulled all these directions, and so I guess what's next for Reid? Like, how much gas is in the tank, at this pace, and going, and what do you foresee for yourself and your business and your brands and over the next 5-10 years?
I would like to I would say maintain where we're at. We just finished construction on the place.
Yep.
And it is, like somebody said the other day, it's like the perfect shoe. It fits the business. There's not another square inch of anything else I could do on that place. There's no room.
Maxed out.
And so I can't put another level. And so just to be able to keep it at this stage, to keep it maintained where it's at. I'm not looking for more growth, so to speak. Maybe just continuing to master the quality and maintain.
Yeah.
Which feels good.
Yeah.
And I absolutely love showing. We just got back from Ocala. Mary Roberts owns RL Trucking, and she's built a place in Ocala. And I don't know if it was $10 billion to build, but it's a private facility, and it's like Disneyland for horses. It's the most perfect place to show horses ever. And we all drove 2 days to get there. And that's the part of our life. We all got out of the truck and we're like, this is why we do this. Like,
Sure.
you're that excited, even if you're that tired, to like set up and be able to do what we do. And so mentors have told me, when you have that passion and you have that fire, you're good to go.
Yeah.
When you lose that, you need to think about some other type of segue. So I would say if that fire goes out, then I think, you know, having the real estate with the property would be my plan B to that. But I can't imagine not working this hard.
Yeah. Any advice for new riders, up and coming, people that want to get in?
I tell new riders that it's smart in the very beginning. It doesn't matter what discipline you want to do, learn to ride right in a quality place. Because if you learn that good foundation, then it doesn't matter what you want to do. Barrels, roping, any of the events that we do, then you have the foundation to that. And I think that there's a lot to riding a horse.
Yeah.
Like, you know, in theory, you'd think, oh, it's just getting on a safe horse, but there is a lot to it.
Sure.
So learning a good foundation would be my best advice in a quality program. And then whether you just ride a horse on a dude ranch once a year, at least you know what you're doing.
Sure.
Yeah.
Anyone you'd recommend for this podcast as we wrap up?
I think you need to talk to Eric.
Talk to Eric. Okay.
I think I'd have to think about it.
Sure.
With regard to local businesses and
Local, hill country, anyone. Interesting stories. You can always get back to me.
yeah, I would. There's got to be some.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Reid, thank you. I appreciate you coming in and
You're welcome.
doing this.
I appreciate you.
Appreciate you.